I would like to know from you ladies, do you guys think that race or racism is an issue within the US? And can you also let me know how you think people with backgrounds from the APAC region are treated differently in comparison to maybe white people in the United States?
So, hi, my name's Cheyenne. I am from Guam, so the indigenous people of the Northern Mariana Islands are Chamorro. I think that race is an issue in the US, and it's something that, travels throughout everywhere that the US has laid their footsteps on, so including our island back home. And a big part of the racial issues back home that I've experienced is just like here, people who have darker skin within our culture, if you're darker, they kind of look at you differently or they say you're not as attractive. So Western civilization has made an impact on, little islands like us
It's actually nice, Chyanne, that you brought up. I'm actually from an Indian descent. Hi, I'm Isha. And it's really interesting how much of an impact a fairer skin has on countries like India. Like, there are legit fairness creams that are sold out there to actually make you fairer and make you look, because that is like being the epitome of being pretty. So if you're fair, that means you're pretty. Nothing else really matters. It's disheartening at that point in time that, you are basically giving all your judgments based on the color of my skin and not on my ability to do a job. I don't even know what to say. Like, literally, I am more educated than you are. I'm earning a lot more than you are. I am doing anything and everything better than you have ever done in your life. And, we have a 25-year age gap between the two of us, but you're still somebody who thinks that your skin color defines you and my skin color defines me.
Living out in the redneck of Roy, Washington, and being one of five people of color, and just noticing how much of a change it was compared to being back on Guam. And it was very eye-opening at first. I spent the whole year kind of just watching over my back, especially in my neighborhood, even though my uncle was well known who we were living with. We still had to like think about who I was associated with and making sure that I wasn't going to anybody's yard, anybody's nothing like that. And I didn't can't really remember my first time I noticed how first off being my color when I first got here, but not in Roy, but when I coming out from Roy to then Tacoma, and then kind of noticing some things, but I realized how much people didn't like it.
My husband is African American, so that when we do want to travel or we do plan on taking vacations, he's always like, well, we have to check, the diversity there before we go there. And, like in the beginning, I was just kind of ignorant to that. Like, yeah, but there's nice people out in the world. They'll be okay. But then when we went to Oregon for school, we didn't do too much of research on how things would be when we would get there. So one time we were walking down the street and we literally got called the N word when we were walking to our dorm. And we're just like, wow.
So one of my uncles, his daughter is the same age as me. He took us to a career fair where all these European universities were there to woo, students from India, because obviously they want our money, but they don't want our color there. But again, so there were a lot of, from an Indian perspective, whites and blacks who had come to the country for this career fair. And this uncle, he's standing at one of the stalls. He is talking super nicely, and I have never seen him being this nice. It's obviously a white woman standing in front of him. The next stall we go to, there's a black guy who's there. He's trying to explain. He's like, no, we don't want to come to this university. Equally weighted universities, no big difference. And I was like, what was the difference? I was equally interested in the other university. And he was like, did you see the first woman? She spoke such good English. I was like, that's her native language. So, she will obviously speak English like the way you do, you talk in your native language. And as far as I understood, the guy was as good in his English. So, he just did not want to say it outright that even being an Indian, he had this bias in his own head where he thought that the whites are more superior and you have to respect them. And I'm like, no, if you do that, what are you like really doing? And like, you're a kid, you won't understand. And it was it was just one of the eye-opening experiences for me and I still remember it today. And I'm like, I just don't know why he did that. But you know, in India, you are brought up with that mindset that maybe those people, because the country was under the British rule for, over 150 years, there is that innate bias in your head where you think that, the color of the skin defines you. And he's like, Isha, you're really good at your work, and you have such good command over your English. Like, Indians don't generally have a good command over their, language. How do you have that? And I was like, most of us actually go to English
It was
medium
different.
schools. Like,
And I took pride in where I'm from. I brought a flag from the island of Guam, and one of the students there said, "Oh yeah, she's not from here." And then, like before you go up to do your presentation, it's kind of like, "Oh, you knew that already?" And it's a culture shock thing for me too, because I was like, "Oh wow, I'm here to show you and represent, where I'm from and give you some insight because I thought you'd be interested in it." But then when you hear a remark like that, it's almost like you want to just go sit back down at your desk and shove your flag to the bottom of your backpack and never talk about it again. So because he's African American, the first question was, "Are you on the football team?" And constantly I just look at him like, you can't be smart and just go to school.
so
Why
my
do you have
work,
to?
and Tiara, as you know it, I am in a lot of these meetings, which end up being sexist and racist for me a lot of times. Because finance again is, the man's world, and girls can't do numbers, but that's a different story altogether. But again, there would be a lot of times that, there is people don't really see there's somebody intelligent who's sitting across from them on the table. And what my work involves is asking a lot of questions. A lot of times I'd be speaking to CEOs of big companies, and I'm the primary analyst in them and have to ask the difficult questions or give them the difficult news of around, that we don't really think that you're doing that well. And one of these times, one of the CEOs, every single time I asked him a question, he wouldn't look back at me and answer. He'd look at, the other men and other white people sitting in the room. And I'm like, it is disheartening, because I've prepared for this meeting. I've prepared for weeks to make sure that I have the best questions for you. And, just don't pass them offhandedly and say that, oh yeah, that's not important, or, and that wasn't the one-off experience. That happened a couple of times where it's like they wouldn't look at me directly, as if looking at somebody else would, make them more of a white or a man just because they're doing that. But yeah, a lot of times that's what I felt, that they really felt that our stature would reduce by quite a lot if we answer her directly. Yes, the next time you're asking me a curry question, there are more than 1 million curries that come from India. And no, there's not a single masala that I can give you that will make every one of your curries tasty. And we are just not paneer and dal makhani. I'm sorry.
I was kind of like, I corrected him. I was like, well, I'm from Guam, that specific islander. I'm not Asian. He's like, yeah, it's the same thing. But really, it's not. And it's the struggle.
The other part that's crazy to me too, though, is just like with Guam and Puerto Rico, like you guys have all the rights of the United States except you can't vote. I'm sorry, then you don't have fucking rights then. Like you guys don't have a say in anything that goes on. Meanwhile, they're fucking telling you guys in your country what you are and are not gonna do. Like,
yes, exactly. That's a big thing, right? Yeah, that's a big thing right now that a lot of the young Guamanian people or Chamorro people are doing back home. They're wanting to decolonize. So that happened to me in the position now. My director, I guess she started off in ballet, then she worked her way up, and then I think she got the position now or was able to move to it because the person before her liked her because she looked like her daughter. And I'm just like, I'm sitting here with a master's, and like I'm thinking that I have to only apply to these certain positions because I don't meet the criteria. Then you have people that look like your redheaded, freckled faced daughter getting positions because you like her like that. It's crazy like this. And one thing that I like to teach the kids too is if you see it and it's not happening to you, you have to speak up, you know, because if you're going through it and you look around and other people aren't stepping in for you, you don't want to feel, you know, how you don't want to have to feel alone in those situations. Oh yeah, so back home, a lot of the very popular dishes that we or things that we like to eat are like very salted and processed foods, so like corned beef and spam and Portuguese sausage and chamorro sausage, and it's all because these things were imported to us during World War II when the U.S. Was taking over the island, and because we weren't able to, you know, grow our own foods like we did before, we had to get things shipped to us. And I think I remember watching a video that my grandfather had sent to us during the war, where like the U.S. had literal parachutes of like food supply boxes dropping on the island, and our people just waiting for it coming down from the sky. A lot of back home, what they say is like, if you're dark, you're not pretty, or you're not as attractive, or it's not a good thing to have. So that's definitely something that's been said to me, like since I was younger, because I'm on the darker side and being Womanian or Chamorro. You know, don't be out in the sun, or you need to put more sunscreen on, or don't take the baby out because it's going to get too dark, or, you know, things like that. And that's definitely something that Western culture has, you know, impacted us on, because before, you know, the US landed there, I'm pretty sure we were all dark and we didn't have a problem with how we looked. So that's something that you know, I think me and my sisters have struggled with mentally. So I think that's a mental thing that we deal with all the time, trying to look like our superior US, you know, leadership or people that came and told us how to eat and look.
What do you guys have to say to the people who think that racism is non-existent and this should be a colorblind society and everybody is the same? Everything is not a race thing. What do you have to say to those people?
Racism's not going away. It's the same thing when we say that we are at the verge of a new era where everything's going to be equal. We have been at the verge of it since the 1800s. You read some of the classics, and yes, there was the Civil War, and yes, the racism had to go out after that. Martin Luther King happened, and the racism was supposed to go out after that. Nelson Mandela happened. There are more than 100 revolutions that have happened over the past 300 years when racism should have gone away after that, and the color of the skin would not have mattered after that. But does it go away? Not really. It's just so innate in our bones. I don't understand it, but I know it exists. I see it exist amongst my peers, amongst even the people who say they don't care about it, or are not bothered by it. Maybe my daughter will have it different. Maybe her kids will have it different. But at least for my generation, I kind of have a very bleak opinion on it.
I agree. What about you, Chyanne?
So what I would say to people that don't think racism is an issue is you definitely have to educate yourself. And I would definitely say travel. That's a big part of, having to learn about different areas. So of course after COVID, but get out and travel, even if it means going to a place you've never heard of, like Guam. And be open-minded about where you go. Get as involved in, their community if you can, or if you're willing to. But travel, that's the biggest thing for me. You have to be able to know that there's more things past the, these borders that we set up here in the US, and, just stay educated. That's probably another biggest thing. You have to be able to, accept other people and their backgrounds and what they have to say, and, why things are done or how they do it in their ways. So yeah.
So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your experiences with whoever's going to end up watching this. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Nice meeting you, Chyanne.